the media, the representatives of the Ministry of Agriculture, the ITC, and I'm representing CADI. Some time ago, we had engaged the agriculture program at the State College as we build capacity along the value chain that will contribute to improving the production of coconuts on the island. And we realized that the young minds like yours, it's important to that is required should you decide to go into agriculture, farming, for more example. And so many of you would have recalled that you were part of a training in Warner on integrated pest management in coconut nurseries. And this is a follow-up to that initial training. But this time we will be dealing with coconut propagation and management. So you have seen the nursery, you have seen the issues, the pest issues of relevance in the nursery, and now we are looking at how you go about producing the plants. This is not something that can be done in detail in the field, hence the need for a classroom session, and thereafter a small demonstration of how field establishment is done. Right? For the purposes of that training, we will dispense technical information from CADI and from the Ministry of Agriculture. CADI in the person of me. I will be presenting from the technical information that was developed by our agronomists based in Belize. It's been modified for the Dominicans scenario. And the ministry, represented by Extension Officer Keston Williams, will present on his exposure to in vitro indexing. So this is what is going to happen during the time that we have this afternoon. So I want to ask you to pay attention to what is being discussed. You will have received your pre-evaluation. It's a small test that is designed to capture what you know on the subject. And at the end of the sessions, you will have a post-test, which is the same questions as you received them. Again, to capture how much has changed in your knowledge on the subject. So without much more to say, I want to invite Shanita John. She's the national coordinator for the project, to give you some brief remarks.
Thank you very much. We're good day, students, and I'm happy that we could have this time together with you. My name is Shanita John, and I am the national coordinator for the analysis for coconut development in the Caribbean project. And that project is funded by the European Union, and we are implementing it from the International Trade Center, ITC, in partnership with CARI and our important partners such as the Ministry of Agriculture. And today it's the Dominica State College. I will not waste more time in giving you a long speech, but to encourage you to follow the technical information that we're going to share with you today, and as much as possible put it in practice, and I hope that will be your start in the coconut industry, especially this year. We celebrated World Coconut Day in September, earlier in September. And the theme this year was growing coconut for a better future and life, and that you always hear young people are the future and so on and so forth. So we hope that today's session, including practical, will really cause you to be more enthusiastic about planting coconuts and being part of the whole development of the coconut industry in Dominica and the Caribbean. So thank you very much for your time and for your listening here.
Let's have some brief remarks from Keston Williams. He's representing the ministerial budget.
Okay, good morning everybody. My name is Keston Williams. I'm Extension Officer on the West Coast. So basically what I'm going to do today is I'm going to explain a little bit about in vitro, which is tissue culture or micro propagation, but I'm going to explain it based on my experience in Mexico using coconut plants, how we go about doing that.
So, before we start our technical session, I just want to let you, to put you at ease. Yeah. I know you're familiar with our offices, but I don't want to get more familiar with you because I was a student of that college some years ago. So was Yasmin, so was Keston, all of us, so was Shanita. But I know the three of us are products of agriculture program. Right? And so, with that commonality, I hope you feel comfortable with us, right? Because we will at one time in the desk, as you are, and have persons presenting to us. So let me just present Yasmin John. Yasmin is our consultant, our technical consultant on the project. We have Ms. Linda. She is representing the Plant Protection Program Services. The project is being implemented in close collaboration with other partners, the Metra government being one such. Right, so let us go straight now into the presentation. I mentioned earlier that the first presentation is adopted from material that was prepared by Kadi, that has been adjusted to our local situation. Right? I will allow me to sit. As we Can you see clearly? All right.
Technical requirements of coconut cultivation.
Right, cool. So as I mentioned earlier, the topic of what we're going to share with you is coconut propagation and management. The presentation it covers the process from the selection of planting material all the way to the plants being ready for the field, and then we'll touch very briefly on establishing it in the field. To start off, agricultural production in general and the management practices, the results from what we have observed in very low productivity, low production and low productivity, right? And so the success of the coconut industry or any coconut venture in Dominica, it really begins with what produces the raw material, and that is the plant. So the good selection of good quality planting material, this is the cornerstone to good production of coconuts. And so we will touch on some of the methods of producing good quality material. There are two general methods. One is the One is the propagation in the lab, which Mr. Williams will be speaking to. Very commonly, we call it, it is known as tissue culture. Everything is done in the lab. You know, all initiation or the multiplication and so on in the lab. And then the very small plant is transferred to a nursery, just like a baby. You know, a baby, a premature baby is not put out in the open like that. You normally go through a process of real tender care to harden that baby before it goes out. It's a similar principle with tissue culture plants, and coconuts being just one such example. And then we have another method is the in vivo method, which is production in the field, really. Vivo being live out in the field. So I will speak to that in vivo method. We will start by defining the seed. We'll start by defining a seed. And the seed in relation to coconuts, is the propagative plant structure. All right, and in the case of the coconut, it's a dry seed. And this is the material that is used for in vivo propagation. Now, why is coconut? Why is coconut a seed? Why do we call a coconut a seed? Well, it is a seed because it is the reproductive part of the plant, of the tree. It's also a fruit because it is a fibrous one-seed juice. And it is also a nut because by definition, a nut is a one-seeded fruit. And so a coconut encompasses all of those definitions. And so it is a real seed. Now, some things that you need to look for when you're selecting a coconut seed is that the mature nuts must be harvested at a certain stage of maturity. All right? And so when you look at a coconut bunch, when one of the nuts on that bunch is dry, all the nuts on that bunch have reached the maturity stage that they can be used to propagate. Alright, so you do not have to wait for all the nuts on a bunch to be dry for those nuts to be considered mature enough to propagate. These nuts must come from if it's from a tall tree, they will be about, at that stage, they will be about 11 to 12 months from the time the flower came out in the plant. And if it's from a dwarf, they will be about 10 to 11 months. So for that length of time, the nuts would have reached maturity from the time the flower emerged. And we just have some representation of what a seed looks like, coconut seed, a dry one at that. All right? The external features of it, and if when it's cut open, you can see the developing seedling in it. And the next slide will give some more detail of that developing seedling. Now, on this slide, you can see it shows the different parts of that seed, that coconut seed. If you look, the part that you will feel is the exopart. The part which eats what we call the flesh of the coconut. Do you know what it's called? Look at this slide. The fleshy part.
Tester.
Tester. Alright? Alright? Tester. Good, so you follow it. And then if the nut stays long enough on the ground, you will have something developing in it that will eventually emerge as a plant. And how do you call that? Based on the slide that you see. It's the endosperm. Alright? The endosperm. Okay? Now, let's go through the process of selecting good quality nuts for propagation. Well, you first start with the mother palm. Alright? Now, the palm must have the desirable characteristics that you're looking for. So if you want to propagate green dwarf coconuts, would you choose nuts from a yellow dwarf? No. It's the characteristics that you want, the kind of variety that you want. So you choose it from a mother palm, a mother plant that has those characteristics. Let's look at some of the other things that you need to do. You need to harvest, select, and store the nuts. Alright? You need to select the site that you're going to do the propagation on. You call it the site. You need to prepare the seed bed. Alright? And you need to plant in the selected variety that you're looking for, the selected nuts that you have from those that you stored, then you plant them in the nursery. Then from the nursery, after the nursery, there is a step that is called a pre-nursery, but we do not generally do that in Dominica. So from the nursery, it goes out into the field, all right? And then you maintain, just how you maintain it in the nursery, you maintain it in the field, all right? And throughout the process, the signage is important. You need to know what is there, and that shouldn't be in your mind because we forget things that make stuff. So when you're establishing your nursery, when you put your nuts in, you put a sign saying this is dwarf. Well, you say dwarf, yellow dwarf. If another bed has green dwarf, and so on. All right. So the sign is important, and as the plants develop, you need to take records. All right. So you could either have a physical data sheet or an electronic data sheet, and you take the kind of information that you're looking for. You want the date planted, treatments applied, or all these kind of things, the growth and so on. So you take the kind of information that is required. Now, let me just show you what the palm should look like. A good mother palm. From the pictures, you can see that it is a heavy layer. All right. So you will not want to choose from a plant that, if the potential is for it to have 16 nuts in a bunch, and you see that plant has 5 or 6, and that is consistent on the plant, you only want to use from that plant that is bearing so low. And what do you think might be the reason for that? Why would you reject a plant like that?
If a low amount of nuts?
Huh?
If a low amount?
Yeah. Why would you not select that?
So for exemplifying how much you can do.
Okay. But what result, let's just say you use nuts from that plant, and you produce seedlings from that. What kind of production do you think you will get from these seedlings from that tree?
That's a similar result from the mother palm.
Right. Perfect. All right. And so you see, you need to select your mother palms carefully, all right, to get the results that you want, all right? So it is not wise to simply buy us a plant without knowing the history of the parent plant, all right? Because you may produce, you may plant out that plant, and in 3 years, from the minimum 3 years, when you're expecting a reasonable yield from that plant, you realize, hey, I'm getting 2 coconuts from the bunch. You know? It's really a waste of time. You know? Alright. So it's important to have that kind of information on the mother plants. And some of the other qualities, some of the other characteristics would be the age, the mother plant can't be too young, how it looks. So if it is crooked and so on, you should avoid that as a parent plant, as a source of your plant material. Also the number of leaves, open leaves, is also important because it tells of the productivity of that plant. Alright? Now some of the varieties I'm mentioning varieties, and some of those varieties that we have are the dwarfs, the yellow, the green, and the orange that are very common. And then you also have the talls. The dwarfs are mostly used to produce water, the talls mostly for oil. There is a variety in the region, the maypan, which is dual purpose. It is ideal for water, it is also good for oil as well. Alright? So different varieties they have different end uses for these varieties. Alright? So if you want to grow coconuts to produce oil, it will not make sense to go and plant dwarf coconuts on your field, if that's what you want, all right? Now the mother palm must be free of pests. You know, in the photo you can see the nuts are heavily infested. On one of the photos you see is mites, the other is scales. Now if you were to propagate that, what you are actually doing is just continue the cycle of this pest. Alright? So in selection we look for nuts that are fairly free from any major pests. And then we speak of after these nuts are harvested, they are stored, and for the storage time, it varies according to the varieties. The dwarfs will vary for up to 10 minutes, you can store for up to 10 days. The talls for up to 20 days. Alright? 21 days. So you've identified your mother palms, you've collected your nuts, you've stored them. The next thing is to plant them out. But before that, you have to select a site for doing that. And there are some there's some things that site must have. It must be, for one, it must be well drained. So you not want to plant out your nuts in an area that is prone to flooding. Alright? It must be getting a lot of light and sunlight, adequate sunlight and water. The pH has to be of a certain level, 5.5 to 7. Alright? And you will not want to establish your nursery close to other coconuts that are heavily infested with pests and diseases. And it makes sense because you don't want it being transferred to your nursery. Okay? And that's just a picture of what a nursery, a typical nursery, a small nursery in our settings might look like. You can see some shade being provided as well for the plants. And of course the labeling we talk about, and importantly, it should have plants at different stages of development. Alright? So you can stagger your planting. Then you prepare beds, and the beds, there's some dimensions. You don't want to make a bed that is too wide so that you cannot reach the plants in the middle. So on average, beds can be about 2 meters wide. Alright? So if you're on one end of the bed, you can reach at least into the center You go on the other side of the bed, you reach into the other side. All right. So if you are doing any operation, you need to reach all the plants. Now, how do you establish your nuts? Well, they can be either horizontal, you can place them either horizontally, vertically, or slightly tilted. And then you cover the nuts, with two-thirds of the nuts, you cover it with a mulching material. Let me just show you in terms of the placement of the nuts, what it looks like. This is what the placement will look like. If it's diagonal or slightly tilted, you can see that. The horizontal is flat and the vertical is straight up like that. And there are advantages and disadvantages for each of those different positionings of the seedbed. In terms of maintenance, so you planted, they've germinated, and the seedlings are coming up. Some of the basic things that you do for all crops, you have to do that for coconuts as well. So you water, you weed, you inspect regularly for pests and diseases. Sometimes we have that misconception that coconut is a hardy crop, and so it is left unattended. All right? Hardy, yes, but at the same time, it's a crop, and it needs the attention that is required for it to develop at the rate that is supposed to, and to produce the kind of quality that is required for establishing a good quality plant.
So question,
Yes?
so roughly for one, how much water is supposed to apply to say?
Well, it depends.
Depends.
It depends on the area of the nursery. For example, there's a nursery in Mona. The amount of water that is required in Mona will be much less than the amount required if a nursery is down in Kenfield or Roseau. You understand? So it all depends. Yes, the nursery operator will make that judgment call. There may be weeks when you never have to apply water. And there may be periods of time when every day you may have to sprinkle. Alright? Good. Alright, so in terms of the time frame from starting the nursery to the plants being ready for the field, we have that demonstrated, I'm showing on the board. So from the time that the nut is collected to the time that we have more than 50% germination of those nuts, we have it varies for the different varieties. So the dwarfs, from 0 to 3 months, most of the nuts would have germinated. Towards the end of the 3 months, most of the nuts would have germinated. The talls, more towards the end of the 4th month. So there's almost an entire month difference between those two varieties in terms of germination. And then in terms of being ready for the field, it can go to as much as 9 months. So from the time of establishing those nuts in this. Right? Okay. So, but one study has shown that planting the nuts 4 to 7 months after it was established is the ideal time, and that has to do with the leaf to root ratio of the plant and the ability of the plant to adapt to the conditions outside. All right, so now we will move to some of what is required for the plants being outside. All right, the plants, coconuts, should be planted in a depressed area. So it's referred to as a pit, and the size, there is an optimal size, but again, it varies. It will vary. All right. You dig that pit, and the nuts are placed in, and the plant is placed in and filled in with the soil. The spacing generally is for planting coconuts is 7.5 meters by 7.5, and that would be about 177 plants. That is, if you want your coconuts planted in a very intensive manner. But if you want it on the border, it can be done, planted closer or wider. Again, it depends on the cropping system that you have. And this shows the mentioned pits. It illustrates how it is planted out in the pits. All right. It's also recommended to put some material to cover the soil after you fill up the pit to the required level, to cover it with some material that will conserve moisture, and so reduce your need for having to irrigate the plants when they are put out in the field. Okay? So I've really covered the propagation, the in vivo propagation of coconut from the selection of the mother palm, the mother plant, all the way down to the establishment in the field. And so I want to thank you for your attention and participation, and move over to Keston, who will present us on the in vitro. So I will entertain a few questions.
So just that, you can consider that motion then? Or is it different?
It's a type of mulching. I mean, the material used in there is coconut husk, but it mulches because it covers the soil. It will minimize weed growth. It will conserve moisture. All right. Anything else? All right. So thanks. So let me just close that. And make way for Keston. If you, well, we will share that presentation with your lecturer, all right? And so you will have the material.
Okay, guys.
Yes, sir.
One afternoon. I'm going to need to stretch. Are you ready to go?
Yeah.
All right. We're going to jump straight into that. I put a few pictures, a few stuff, but I missed the one. Alright. So, let me start off. In 2020, I went to Yucatan in Mexico. That is on the eastern border, close to Veracruz. That is a place that have a lot, miles of coconuts. So I went there, we did the in vivo cultivation, but we also did some in vitro cultivation, which by now I thought we would be doing that in Dominica, but yet still we're not yet start doing that. So what happened is in Mexico they tried and strengthen, because of the hurricanes, we always get hurricanes, a lot of countries get devastated, so they tried and strengthen the coconut industry. Okay, so we went to Mexico to visit the university. Alright, as we know, Hurricane Maria in 2017, I think everyone there was alive for that. Hurricane Maria, you see what happened to Dominica, all the coconut trees, everything was devastated. People don't get a coconut to drink, well, some people had access to the fuel out there, but for all we had, money used to come, every time I come to buy a full bottle of water, because for me personally, I rather drink coconut water than water. So, anyway, coconut, I did a little info on coconut. The coconut, the scientific name is Cocos nucifera. It is a member of the palm tree family, and it is the only living species of the genus Cocoa. Now, the coconut can be referred to the tree, the seed, the fruit, and they say the fruit is technically a grape, not really a nut. So now it gets its name from the Portuguese language, because as we see the coconut, it has something like 2 little eyes and a mouth on it, so it looks like somebody else, so that's why they get the name Cocoa. Alright, so now, like I said, we had Hurricane Maria in 2017, then we had COVID-19 in 2020, and that just showed us how important it is for us to have food security in the country, because first We didn't have any coconut trees. We didn't have any nurseries, anything to say like, oh boy, there were no coconuts. We are somewhere we can go and get coconuts and distribute to the farm. And everything was just on a standstill. That caused the price of coconut to just go up. Yeah. So we see the importance of coconut in the world. Now, these are some of the countries, approximately the whole world area that was from since 2010, I think we have that information. That's the estimated acreage of coconuts in the world. 12 million hectares. Hectares and not acres. So we have, you can see the Philippines, these are the places that have the most and the percentage which they cover for the, so in the Caribbean, you can see we're not really that much of a factor, I would say, but it's still a very important industry for us because a lot of farmers, that's where they get their livelihood from. So we're looking at two types of propagation. We just look at the in vivo propagation, now we're going to look at the in vitro now. That is an example of the in vivo. That is basically, so you can see that, right, we'll start there. You plant the seed, germinate, sprout, seedling, go into a tree, and like the cycle basically for in vivo propagation. Now we won't jump into what I deal with now, in vitro. So basically, that in vitro in the coconut, it can be applied technically in almost any plant, right? So you can practically take any part, any tissue from any plant and make form a new plant of it. So the first thing you want to do, that is for coconut. So you want to look at the selection of the nuts. So you're going to find the tree, you find the characteristics of the tree you like, or if you find it is high bearing, if it's a big coconut that have a lot of water, or if to determine and then you choose which coconut you want. So these are the different stages for the in vitro. Selection of the nuts, the initiation stage, the germination or the multiplication stage, we have rooting or the clipping stage, and then the acclimatization of the coconuts. Right. So like I said, you're going to select the best coconuts you want to choose. If it's a short one, a dwarf you want to plant in your yard, so and you choose which coconut you want, so then you're going to plant it. So now, with the coconut, we're using the embryo, the white part. Now, with the in vivo propagation, normally one coconut will give you one tree. But with that, we're going to use the embryo, and then first thing you're going to do, you take it to the lab, you're going to disinfect that. When you're going to be in a lab, you're going to be working in your workstation, you should have an area with that, going hot, yes, that's to avoid contamination. So first thing you do is to disinfect all the coconut to make sure that one, no disease, no dirt, nothing on it. So then you're going to take that, you're going to slice it up in pieces. Each piece you take going to become a new coconut. Right. So now we know what are the macro and micronutrients, right? So what happened for you to create that environment for the coconut? We create a medium or solution. You look at something like in its final phase when you finish creating it, look at something like if you know when you make jello, look at something like that. So now what you doing, you get in the macro and the micronutrients in their pure state. So you would have to buy that. So it comes in like in powder form or in liquid form, some of them. So now we have the certain amount, so we mix some nitrogen, potassium, all those things. We mix them up in a container, put them in a microwave, let them heat up, and then when you let them cool, you will get something like that. It can be, it doesn't necessarily have to be white, it can be different colors depending on what elements you put in it. Alright, so now in the multiplication stage, there is a picture from the nursery we visited. So after you take the embryo, there is about anywhere from 2 weeks, 3 weeks to within 1 month, you will start to see that the plant starting to send shoot, starting to it's alive, it's starting to reproduce itself. Then after that, you have the plants after about, let's say, a month to in the second month. And as you can see, that process is way faster because with the in vivo, you probably have to wait about approximately a year, like 9 months, for both the dwarf and the tall varieties. With that, you can have your coconut ready by, let's say, 3 months, 4 months. So you can see here that they start to make roots in the jar, but you have to keep the jar closed. You don't want anything to contaminate it. So they start making roots in the jars. After that, you have the acclimatization process. So after you see your coconut, they make roots in the jar. You want to know, just like you said, premature baby, you don't just send them outside, they live in an incubator for them to get strong or to harden. So after you do that, you have to set up a greenhouse, right? So we know what a greenhouse does. It provides all the adequate or the optimal temperature, water, soil type, everything for the coconut to thrive. So from that, you would put that in the greenhouse to let it about a month, 2 months, let it catch itself. So you would say, then after that, you control all the soil humidity, everything. After that, you take the coconut and then you can bring it outside, and then from there you can distribute it to the farmers or to whoever are the stakeholders that are interested in coconut.
Are we doing this here? You said there's a nursery at GMIT. Are we using?
The GMIT is,
are we using this one
no,
here? No.
The problem is in Dominica we're not really doing in vitro cultivation yet.
So what we're doing there is in vitro.
What we want to is in vivo. Vivo means vivo is Spanish for life. Yeah. So.
Okay.
Any questions? Anyone? Or you can ask me anything because, like I said, I don't want to run for that. It's basic stuff. And if I have to go into details, it's a lot of information. So I just do the basic concepts for you.
When details, man?
Anyone else? No questions?
Questions? I was all the way to my first state division. Is it better, in your opinion?
Well, depending on what you do now. Let's say if you're a farmer and you just have your you want to spend you just go somewhere in your field and just pick up coconut, but like let's say you get a contract or something and you want to produce, like let's say what you for some 500, 800, 1,000, 10,000 coconuts at a time. You cannot stay and wait for a coconut to take a whole day for it to let's so that one would be better for
situation.
For quantity. Yes.
So do we have plans on having a lab for coconut?
Well, actually, since I came back on school, I've been actually waiting to work in a lab. Like 10 years, so I can't answer that for you. I don't know what's going to happen. I hope we will reach to the point where because that can save us a lot of stuff. And then
So hi, we are thankful that you stayed with us. I mean, some of you all are lifelong students, so we're happy that you were on the live to learn. Some of you may be farmers and have learned some new techniques in coconut production in Dominica. We are always grateful for you joining us here from the Division of Agriculture, along with our partners CADI and ITC, to just get some more information on new technologies, new techniques, innovative ways of production. And as of course, we are striving to become resilient, we are striving to be commercial. All our activities are geared towards that. So we do hope that you will go back, look at the live and just learn some techniques. So when your extension officers come, you can have some dialogue and discussion and say what you've learned today based on the training that the officers have received from our partners and our counterparts on the overseas. So right now we're going to go into the planting of 3 symbolic plants, just to show the students the actual techniques they've learned and they've heard, and then we will take it from there. Thank you.
You want to get the students, huh?
No? So as we have again, Dorian Etienne is there, and he is the representative CADI, representative in Dominica. Any student of agriculture would know CADI means Caribbean Agricultural Research and Development Institute. Dorian, can you tell us the varieties that you have in your hand as we speak?
This is a Malayan green dwarf. This is the Malayan orange dwarf.
So how do you denote the difference?
If you look at the difference, if you look at this difference, the color. All right, all developing stem, then it's an indication of the varieties.
So,
So
these,
the-
so what second?
we
That's
also-
the variety that's good for both oil and water?
No,
No?
this
Okay.
is the dwarfs. The dwarfs,
Oh, these are the dwarfs. Okay,
yes,
sorry,
are
sorry,
for
sorry.
water.
For water, yes, yes, yes.
And we have a toll.
Okay.
We have a toll here. This is for oil. That's for oil.
Okay, so we do have, so you've learned something, Imo, so we're happy. So, when it comes to the nut size, does that matter? We see one is bigger than the other.
Well, no, varietal. There's varietal differences in the nut sizes, as well as sometimes in just in the conditions that the plant
reproduce the nut?
is exposed to at the time that it flowers,
Okay.
and the nut develops would affect the size of
One
the
critical question, though, or two I have rather. When you say dwarf, how tall will that tree get? Will I be able to just stay and pick it with my bare hands, not using a stick, not using any guys paying any labor?
at a certain stage of its development. It comes into bearing earlier than the talls, but it can eventually get taller than you can reach it. So
Any way you can restrict that?
no.
Because I've seen some nuts when you just pick them with your hand, the tree is on your level.
Yes, at that stage of that stage of development, the tree will be at that height, but the tree continues growing at a slower rate than the talls, but the tree will continue growing and will eventually reach the height that would not allow you to reach into the canopy.
But compared to the talls, it's much easier.
It's much easier, and the talls grow faster too.
And you also mentioned that it's important that in the nurseries that your seedlings be at different
Stages of development.
stages of development. Now that stood out to me because I mean generally you don't see that, but to get that you would have to start preparing them at different times.
Yes, you collect nuts at different stages, at different times. So if this month you would collect nuts, you establish them. A month later, you collect another set of nuts. So your nursery would always have plants, but at different stages of growth.
I think that was most
Stood
to
out
me,
to you.
because even if lettuce and so on, you find that everybody has a crop around the same time, but very
Yes.
interesting.
Okay, so Imo, you're going to come back to school, I suspect. And you're going to work in agriculture. Is that correct?
Of course, I have my farm.
Okay, great. So we are here with the students. They're all eager and excited. They put away their cell phones, and that's not something that you see with young people. And they're ready to do some
Planting.
minimal manual labor. Minimal. That's how good technology is right now. So who's volunteering?
We can have one of the ladies and one of the young men. Let's go.
And again, this is sponsored by CADI, and it's the Alliances for Coconut Industry Development in the Caribbean project.
Commission.
By CADI and the European Union and the ITC.
I want you to do what you want with the camera. Is going to have to do that you lower the plant in the hole and then throw some soil, fix on the soil and put on top. Alright? Can come the door, right, fella? Yes. Right.
So we saw the planting materials earlier, and now
So you can go in. So, yeah, just what I want you to do, hold, just hold it. Take the plant. Then go on that side. Alright, you take the plant and lower it into the hole. Just lower it into the spoon, right? Alright. Right. Make it nice. So you can apply yourself to it.
Yes,
And we have here the students engaged in planting. This is a tall variety. We didn't get to show it to you before. This one is a tall variety.
And hence we put them far away from the general walkway, etc. Away from buildings.
As the camera can see, the whole nut is covered that way.
Not deep enough?
Not deep enough, fine enough to get. Okay. Right. And then you would water, you would water it, of course. Right? You would water. Okay.
And so the students are responsible to water the plants.
Okay, so we haven't forgotten our banana. So we are really trying to do an integrated system, and I want to say thank you once again for joining us. I mean, the students are elated. I guess they will look at the live later. And I want you all to share the live. If you have any friends who are farmers, if you have any friends who are consumers of the coconut, to show them the work that goes into it, the energy and the effort that is needed, and that is all within the cost of production. I want to say thank you very much for continuing to support us in our ventures, in our activities. And we want to say once again that we are working towards building a resilient cropping system, a resilient nation, agriculture. Thank you very much.
Now we're going to get one of the students to give us his feedback of everything that happened today.
Of course. Good afternoon. I'm Kurt Frederick, third year of the Dominica State College of Agriculture.
And he also has his nursery business, so you guys can look out for him.
If you want to call it that, but either way. In terms of the presentation today, it was extremely beneficial, and I expanded my knowledge on the coconuts and the pests prior to the visit at Warner. So today was a proper finalization to solidify the knowledge gained, and a proper exemplifying of the knowledge in the presentation, including how to plant and how to cover it. So it was very well done.
Thank you. So once again, this is Emonews, and we are saying goodbye from the Dominica State College, Dominica's premier learning institution. Goodbye, everyone. Thanks for joining.